Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Advisor with Stacey Chillemi. Today, I'm very excited because we have our very special guest. She's part of our podcast community. She has her own podcast on our channel, and she is the one, the only Marysol, and she is an author. And not only is she an author, but she is a best-selling author. She's written over 32 romance books, but about healthy romance, which is great, and they are doing fabulous. So she has one right now that's in pre-sale. So I suggest that you
Mhm.
go over and check it out. And also, I just like to give a quick shout out to our sponsors who make this show happen, iHeartRadio and Spreaker, for being our sponsors. And I just like to say thank you to them. And today we're going to talk about narcissism, and we're going to really go deep into it. And Marisol, I think the best way to really start about talking about narcissism is about maybe you sharing your story, because you've gone through it, you've experienced it, and there's
Mm.
so many women out there who are currently in a narcissistic relationship, or they've been in a narcissistic relationship, or they were in one and then they went into another one, because sometimes we fall into those same repetitive behaviors. Now, for you, I'd love for you to share your story if you're able to, and tell people why you're so passionate about helping others who are in narcissistic relationships.
Mm. Hi, Stacey. It's good to see you again. And actually, just as I was saying earlier, congratulations on your book and your book tour. And it's doing very well. And I know you've worked really hard. So, yay for you. Congratulations. Okay, back to me. Uh, well, I'm someone that, it's one of these situations where when people talk about ending up in abusive relationships, and I just talk about romantic relationships. I don't talk about a friendship or a mother-in-law or a family member. I just focus on romantic relationships.
Right.
And I think one of the things that people really believe about women who end up in these abusive romantic relationships, and by abuse, I mean anything from the psychological to the emotional to the financial to the physical. There's a spectrum. You
Yes.
can't just say, well, it wasn't really abuse because he never hit you. Well, that's been thoroughly debunked. If he raises his voice at you and scares you, that is abuse, right?
Yes.
So as I was saying, I think there's this idea that if you end up in this kind of relationship, something is wrong with you.
Right.
You are not smart enough to see it coming. You are too weak to leave it. You are not educated about, well, anything to do with life. You're kind of an idiot. And I never thought that ever about women who ended up in relationships like this, but I also didn't understand how women ended up in relationships like this
Right.
until it happened to me, until I was in a very, very abusive relationship. And he abused me emotionally, psychologically, financially, and physically. So I got the spectrum, you know. But, even after I left, I still had a really hard time for a long time seeing it for what it was, like understanding that this was narcissistic abuse that I
Yeah.
experienced. And it's the kind of thing where I think anybody who's been in an emotionally abusive relationship feels a lot of sort of shame about it. Like, how did
Yeah.
this happen? How could I have been so stupid? But when you're a woman who, like me, is highly educated and very professionally successful, and a lot of personal strengths and successes in your history, there's a layer of extra shame there because,
Yeah.
well, how could I have been so dumb? Like, how did I not see it coming? And I
Right.
wasn't young. I was in my 40s when it happened. I had plenty of life experience. I had a history of very healthy romantic relationships. Even the
Mhm.
breakups were very healthy.
Right.
And this guy just, I was utterly unprepared for him. I didn't see him coming. I didn't know what to look for. And this is the problem with narcissists is until you've met one, you don't know what they even are. You're not educated and aware of how they present themselves, how they behave, and then the impact on you.
Right.
So, my background is that I have a master's degree in international law and business and relations. I have worked in management pretty much all my life. I traveled the world by myself. I mean, I backpacked through Asia by myself as a young woman.
Yeah.
I I was a best-selling romance writer. I had written sort of like 20 books before this guy came along and I met him. I was a best-selling. So I had like really all my ducks in a row as a
Yeah.
person, as a woman, as a world traveler, as a professional, personal, everything. And then this guy came along, and within 2 years, he just blew it all away. It just took all of it just collapsed on top of me. Um, so it that's how it happened to me. I just honestly, none of my successes or life experiences or strengths or past relationships, nothing prepared me for this guy. And until you meet a narcissist, you don't know what a narcissist is capable of. You don't see it coming.
Yeah. Some people would say, well, didn't you see any red flags? But, sometimes when you're in a relationship too, especially at the beginning, sometimes you're blinded to certain things. And, you look at their good qualities and you're like, well, maybe, well, you avoid it in your head, like, well, he look at this and look at this and look at this, and you just keep going with it. And then all of a sudden it's like you get trapped into it. And it's very hard to get out, it seems.
Well, I think the important thing to remember with narcissists is this isn't a blanket term. There are many different kinds of narcissists, and some
Yeah.
of them they're very easy to see coming. Like the grandiose narcissist is the guy who stands in front of the boardroom and he's got his chest out and he bellows and he's arrogant. Like you can see these guys coming a mile away, right? Or the guy who always shows off all the shiny toys and looks down on anybody who doesn't make as much money as him or whatever, you know?
Mhm.
The problem is that my ex was a covert narcissist, not an overt narcissist. And
Okay.
this is really a huge difference because the overt narcissist comes across as very grandiose and arrogant and loud and just insulting everybody and but the covert narcissist appears as really wonderful. They go out of their way to love bomb you at the beginning of the relationship. And what love bombing, it sounds like a really violent term, but it's not. What
Yeah.
love bombing is them showing up as your dream person because they spend the first few weeks or months of the relationship figuring out what it is you want and what it is you need in a romantic partner. And then
Mm,
they become that person. It's called mirroring, where they mirror back to you your desires, your dreams, your wants. And so, of course, you fall in love with this person because you feel like they're perfect for you, you know? And
yeah.
the reason they come across as perfect for you is because narcissists, covert narcissists, have no center, they have no core of true sense of self. They're
Yeah.
chameleons and they become whoever you need them to be. So
Mm,
you fall in love with them. And
yes.
then that's the love bombing stage. It's this person showing up like you're fated to be together. They're your soulmate. There's this sense of destiny. There's this sense that nobody has ever understood you the way they understand you. And so you don't see it coming because all you see is this person in front of you that you think is being legitimate and genuine.
Yes.
You don't know it's all an act. You don't know it's all a lie. You don't know that
Yeah.
because if you're like me, you came from a history of really healthy romantic
Right.
relationships where the person who showed up was who they were
Yeah.
and they didn't change drastically in the course of the relationship. It's just the relationship fell on its butt or life changes or whatever. But in the
Yeah.
case of the narcissist, you're falling in love with someone that doesn't actually exist.
Right.
And there's no way to see that coming. There are some red flags that I can call people's attention to. There are a few things you can do or
Mm-hmm.
look for. Um, but again, if you haven't already met a narcissist, you don't
Mm-hmm.
know to look for these things. You just
Right.
don't. Because
Right.
narcissists, they tend to go to people who are, um, open and forgiving and emotionally intelligent, because people like this tend to want to work through things. If there's a problem in the relationship, they want to have a conversation. They want to work through it. Especially women who are professionally successful or educated, we are problem solvers. We know that if something comes up, you don't just abandon it. You like figure it out. And
Exactly.
this is something that in a healthy relationship is wonderful. But with a narcissist, it just plays into their hands because they're
Yeah.
counting on you to, first of all, fall in love with the illusion. But then, even if you see small cracks, they're counting on you to like stick around and be forgiving and work through it.
Right.
So that's just the first stage of the narcissistic abuse, right? That's
Right.
just the beginning. That's just how they get you kind of where they want you. And then everything after that is pretty much a total bloody nightmare. But
Right.
the love bombing stage is really, it's hard to see with a covert narcissist, and that's the point.
Yes.
So when you sort of say, well, how did you not see it? Well, no, you can't see it until the thing is, now I would see it. That's the
Yeah.
unfortunate thing. Now I know I would
Right.
see it, but I didn't see it the first time around, and I don't think anybody does, not really. So that's why I think women need to educate themselves, and um, there are some test questions you can kind of ask a person to figure out if maybe they are a toxic personality. But again, if you don't know this, you don't know this.
Right.
And then someone like me, I found out the hard way. I got a real education in narcissism, and I really wish I didn't have it. I wish I
Yeah.
hadn't learned what I had to learn.
Is there more than, like, so you mentioned two types of narcissists. Are there more than two types that people should look out for that so they're aware?
Well, many. I mean, I think Dr. Ramani lists 9 different types of
Wow.
narcissists. So there's like the overt narcissist, which is the one you can see them coming for a mile. And then there's the covert narcissist. But then there's the malignant narcissist, which tends to be a covert. See, my ex was actually a covert malignant narcissist. You can mix them up a little bit.
Oh
And a
yeah. Yeah.
malignant narcissist is just they have a sadistic streak where they really enjoy hurting you. It's not that they're doing it to get power or control. They really get off on it. That's a very those you get the fact that I fell in with a malignant covert narcissist was probably the worst combination, and they do the
Yeah.
most damage because they don't just mess with your head. You realize that they really enjoyed hurting you. So this person who claimed to love you, that you thought you loved, was just really, really out to destroy you. I mean, malignant narcissists completely go nuclear. They look to utterly destroy their victims. Um, and then I can't remember what it's called, but it's like the type of narcissist who does a lot of good deeds in the community. You find a lot of these people in churches, for examples, or social organizations
Right.
where they need the admiration for their good deeds. So they have
Right.
to go out there. So these are the people who come across kind of as saviors and really aware and
Yeah.
compassionate and generous, but none of it is genuine at all. And if they're not being complimented and recognized and revered for
Yeah.
their charity, right? And I'm putting it in quotation marks because it's not genuine charity. This is
Yes.
where this is how their ego is fed. They're not doing it to help others. They're doing it to make themselves look good. So that's just four types right there. So you can see
Right.
there's a lot of different variations. But in terms of being in a romantic relationship with one,
Hmm.
and the most destructive would be the combination that I unfortunately got, which is the
Yeah.
malignant covert narcissist. Because not only do you not see them coming, um, they they are absolutely motivated to destroy you as a person, and they do not stop until they have completely wiped you out. So those are just some of the examples of types of narcissists that people should probably be aware of.
It's horrible, but you were in this relationship for a while, and you were able to actually get out of it. Not everybody's able to get out of it. Some people are afraid to get out of it. Some
Mm.
people are, they don't know where to go for the help, but you were able to get out of it. How did you, find yourself to get to the point where you were able to leave this narcissistic relationship and move forward?
Yeah, I mean, I was in a relationship with him for 6 years, and the first the first year was really good. The year after that, the cracks started appearing, and then by about sort of the second year, he just completely like, he had me where he wanted me. I was working for his company. I had stopped writing, so I had no independent source of income.
Mm,
My son had moved in with us, so I was in a situation where I had a child who depended on me.
mm.
I was working for his company only, so I if I left him, where was I going to, like, how was I going to have any money? How was I going to support myself and my child? I had moved to England to be with him, and I moved just before lockdown. So I didn't have any friends. I was very isolated. I
Wow.
didn't I didn't have a car. We were in a small town. So I was in this situation where I was legitimately trapped with this person and financially dependent on them. My son was in this situation, so I wasn't just thinking about me, I had to think about him. And I didn't have anywhere to go. I mean, lockdown went for a while in the UK. It lasted well over a year. So
Yeah.
there was nowhere to go. Like there was no safe space. And even if I had left, like, who was going to support me? Like, I had no family, I had no friends, so it was very much that kind of physically, financially trapped situation. I mean, literally locked in with my
Wow.
abuser. And then even after lockdown lifted, I I still was working for his company. That was my full-time job. It was expected
Yeah.
of me. And anytime I tried to sort of push back and get back to my writing, because I had been a
Yeah.
best-selling romance writer before he came along.
Right.
And he didn't want me. I mean, he said he supported my writing, and
Yeah.
we had this agreement where I would work for his company 3 days a week, and then I would write 2 days a week. But anytime it was a writing day, he would manufacture some drama or some crisis or start an argument, or he would come home and be disruptive, or the company had some major emergency drama that had to be dealt with immediately. So I didn't even get my 2 writing days a week. He would sabotage
Yeah.
them because the whole idea that I would have any financial independence at all, you cannot do that with a narcissist. That you have to be completely under their control and their power. You have to be completely reliant on them. And that's also how they get off on it, is
Yeah.
having so much control over a woman like me who used to be incredibly independent financially, physically, traveling the world, living overseas. Like, I was a very independent, strong spirited woman. And part of the thrill for him was making someone like me utterly, utterly dependent on him. It's part of the game. And it's
Yeah.
part of the sickness, right? It's part of the challenge and the fun, which is where the malignant narcissist part comes in, where he got a real thrill out of taking someone like me and breaking me down into tiny little pieces.
Right.
So that went on for years. And every day, like I just got beaten down a little bit more. And the truth is that most romantic relationships with narcissists end up with you being discarded. Like I have discovered since leaving him that he was in contact with his ex-girlfriends. He was asking them for sex. Like I found all, I didn't know this at the time, but
Yeah, yeah.
the narcissist always has a double or triple life. There's always another life you don't know about. Forever and always, this is the ultimate truth. So he was he was looking around, and narcissists are always looking around because one source of supply is not enough. They need more people telling them how great they are and how sexy they are and how much they want to be with them. So the way these things unfortunately usually end is the narcissist finds somebody new, a new victim, a new romantic partner, and they will just up and leave you. Like they will just walk away and go to the new person immediately. Um, and that's not what happened in my case. In my case, I'm the one who left him. I'm the
Right.
one who broke up with him and walked away and took my son. Um, and it took about 6 months of planning. This is the thing. It's not something you can just up and do. Because as I
Right.
said, I was so financially dependent on him.
Yes.
So I had about a year before I left him, I began to think, like, I began to understand that something was very wrong in this relationship and that it couldn't always be me. Like, there was no
Right.
way that it was
Yeah.
always my fault all the time. It just, something in my head just kind of went, whoa, like,
Yeah.
like, what the hell? And so
Exactly.
I found myself Googling, like, his behavior, to try to figure. And then I found myself Googling my behavior. And then I was looking to get a therapist because I thought something was so wrong with me that I needed counseling to
Yeah.
improve the relationship. So when you start to Google your partner's behaviors and patterns
Mhm.
in your relationships, that's a big red flag
Oh,
because
yes.
you're so confused. And what kept coming up and coming up was narcissism. And I'm like, but I thought I was the narcissist. Like I thought I was the one who was the problem in the relationship because, I was behaving so out of character by that point. I was so abused and so confused and so beaten down and so unstable and so just mentally, like I didn't know which way was up ever.
Right.
So
Right.
I was convinced I was the problem. So I started thinking, am I the narcissist? But the more I read, the more I realized what I was dealing with. And that
Right.
was when I thought, I really need to get out of this. So I
Hmm.
started writing, not romance novels, but I started secretly taking writing assignments on,
Yes.
like, LinkedIn. There are those writing assignments, and there's
Yes.
freelance writing, websites. So I just
Yeah.
started, and they all pay in PayPal. So I started writing like that, and just having the money because he would check my bank account as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
like really, yeah, just to make sure. So I just started accumulating money in a PayPal account for 6 months, and when I thought I had enough to move my son and I to the city we live in now, where he goes to college, that's when I basically broke up with him.
Wow.
And yeah, and then I also managed to find a therapist for a reasonable amount of money who is very narcissistic trauma informed. That's her specialty. So
Yep.
I immediately got myself into therapy. But honestly, I am one of the rare cases where the victim left the abuser.
Yeah.
Usually, I don't want to give a statistic, but most of the time, like predominantly, the narcissist has a new supply. And when they get sick of you because they've taken everything they can from you, they've sucked you dry, they've beaten you down, mission accomplished, they've got you just like
Yeah.
reduced to nothing. they move on to a new victim who doesn't know who they are yet. And it starts all over again where they love bomb them and they change for them and they make the new person fall and they're off to the races. And you're left behind literally wondering what happened.
Right.
So, um, unfortunately, that's if your listeners have been in this type of relationship, I would say the majority of the listeners who have been in this relationship were the ones who were discarded. They did not do the discard.
Yeah.
And it in both cases it's totally devastating, not because the relationship's over, but because of all the stuff you find out after the relationship is over. Like I said to you, before we were talking, I told you I'm a year and a half out and I'm still finding out things that he lied to me about, or I'm still finding out things that he did that I didn't know about, or I'm still remembering a conversation and thinking, holy, yeah, like I forgot about that, you know? So
Yeah.
it is a long healing process
Oh,
afterwards, whether,
yeah.
you leave or you're left, either way. When you're dealing with a narcissist, there is some serious, serious damage in the wake of their departure, whichever way they leave.
Are there some things that you've done that have helped you in the healing process that you could maybe suggest to people who are kind of caught up in the situation where either they just left the relationship and they feel very hurt and they're in pain, or
Mm-hmm.
they're getting ready to, or they're at that point,
Mm-hmm.
what some of the things that you did to help heal yourself? You're still in the healing process, but
Yeah.
what have you done to get yourself to this point right now where you're actually strong enough to help others and you've gotten to that point where you're coping with it, and now
Mm-hmm.
you're at the next step where you're actually taking your knowledge and your experiences and helping others?
Mm. Well, I mean, the one thing that everybody will say is go completely no contact with the narcissist. Like, don't look at their social media. Don't like just pretend they don't exist. Pretend they've fallen off the planet.
Right.
And I think for a lot of women, that is not an option. If you have children with your narcissistic ex, you're going to have to figure out a way to deal with them, and that's the reality. You cannot go completely no, unless you just want to just have the lawyers talk to each other, but that gets crazy expensive crazy fast.
Oh,
Most people
yeah.
cannot afford to have their attorney talking to their ex's attorney 4 times a week. You know what I mean? It's just not
Oh, yeah.
real.
No.
So in some cases that advice is so stupid because it's just not, you just can't, right?
Yeah.
But for even someone like me, I didn't have children with him. He's not the father of my son, but I didn't want to go completely no contact in terms because I had so many questions and I had so many suspicions and I had so many, you go through the entire relationship feeling crazy and
Yeah.
they're convincing you that what you think is going on is not going on, or what you think they said or did, they didn't actually do it. And you spend the entire relationship sure that you're losing your mind. Like you feel like a
Right.
lunatic all the time. And
Hmm.
you are actually crazy because you're under so much stress. There is actually brain damage from that
Yeah.
level of prolonged abuse and stress. And when you
Hmm.
get out of it and you sort of start to think straight again,
Yeah.
um, suddenly you just sort of you need the confirmation that you're not crazy, that you didn't
Yes.
imagine all this stuff. So I personally had to go sort of full Sherlock Holmes,
Mhm.
or Miss Marple. And I
Yeah.
had to, for my own sanity, I had to do a deep dive into a lot of stuff to do with
Right.
him. Because I needed to just confirm to myself, I needed to be able to say to myself, I'm not crazy. I didn't imagine it. I wasn't wrong. I wasn't
Yeah.
too sensitive. I wasn't losing my mind. I didn't need therapy because, like I was right. And
Yes.
so one of the things I would say to anybody kind of in that tailspin time. People telling you, just move on, just block him, just forget about it. I don't necessarily go along with that advice because I needed
Yeah.
to confirm some things. And I think there's a point where you can go too far. You can get obsessed with
Mhm.
trying to recreate. You start to get like you're a conspiracy theorist. I'm going to find out the connections, and I'm going to. But at some
Yeah.
point, you kind of have to say, I know enough. I know enough. I know there's more that I have not yet discovered. I know
Right.
there's stuff that I will never know. I know
Hmm.
there's more to, I know there are more lies to uncover. I know, whatever. But I
Yes.
know I have found enough to convince me that I was not crazy and I was not wrong. And that's
Yes.
all I need to know. So if you can get yourself to the point where you can say, I know there's more. I know I'm never going to know everything. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with what I know. And the most important thing is, I know I was not crazy. I
Right.
was not crazy. And you've got to get yourself to that point. And if that means, like I said, going Sherlock Holmes and doing whatever and looking like a lunatic for a few months, and nobody can figure out what you're doing. Why are you so obsessed? I would say, to hell with them. You need to do it because you
Yeah.
cannot heal until you truly believe that you were right. you know,
Yes.
all that
Hmm.
stuff you suspected, you were right. And
Right.
I think that's very powerful. I think that's very powerful. And it's very empowering as well because it changes how you look at the relationship.
Right.
When you realize that the whole thing was one gigantic lie and you've proven to yourself that the whole thing was one gigantic lie,
Yes.
something changes in your head and you go, well, okay, yeah, you know what? I got this now. Now I can start to heal properly because now I know I was not the problem. Whatever
Right.
he told me, I was not the problem here.
Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. And you've created a course to help people. Can you tell us a
Uh,
little about that course? I'm really excited about it.
okay. Well, it's something that I created with my therapist, who, like I said earlier, is she's a woman who specialized in narcissistic abuse recovery and trauma and survival. And I started talking to her about this course because I when I went looking for help, online or whatever, I didn't find a whole lot aimed at really high achieving women who had
Yeah.
fallen into these relationships. And
Right.
like I said at the beginning, anybody who's been in an abusive relationship walks away with shame and a feeling of, well, how stupid am I? But like I said, high
Yeah.
achieving women have an extra layer of, I really didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
And there's this, sort of hesitancy to talk about what happened to us because, well, we really should know better. So
Right.
I created a 90-day program, and it's called "It Happens to the Best of Us." because it does happen to the best of us,
It really
and
does.
yeah, it does, and it's broken into 5 segments, and each segment or phase of the course over the 90 days focuses on a different stage of the narcissistic abuse cycle. And
Hmm.
when I was thinking about how to organize the information, because it's a lot of information,
Yeah.
I decided that I would use Greek goddesses and women of mythology
Hmm.
because I've always loved mythology. I've always
Yeah.
loved it. It's one of my passions.
Hmm.
Um, and also, a lot of these women were very strong women,
Yes.
but very misunderstood in the original telling of the myths. They were
Yes.
either completely overlooked, or they were dismissed, or they were misunderstood, or belittled. And over the past 5 years, there's been a lot of reimagining of Greek mythology, but told from the woman's perspective. She's the heroine of the story. So,
Yeah.
you get a lot of really amazing female writers who are writing. I mean, I don't know how many books on my bookshelf here, like retelling of Medusa, retelling of
Yeah.
Ariadne, retelling of Pandora, And so I thought, I'm going to use these women to represent the different parts of the narcissistic abuse cycle. So, for example, the first stage of the abuse cycle is obviously at the beginning. And this is where we talk about things like love bombing. But
Yes.
but it's such, like I said, it's a huge lie. So
Mhm.
one of the goddesses that I have chosen to represent this first stage of the abuse cycle is Apate, or
Mhm.
her Roman name is Fraus, which is,
Right.
this is where the word fraud comes from, is actually from this
Oh,
goddess's name. Yeah. So she is the goddess of fraud, illusions, mist, lies, deception. So the Apate Fraus part of the course is just talking about all of the ways how in the beginning you are lied to and betrayed. And we talk about the persona, and we talk about the mirroring. So it's taking a lot of information and kind of
yeah.
putting it into um, a goddess, which she represents. And
Yeah.
then there are other goddesses in the beginning as well. And every single goddess represents a behavior or a pattern of narcissistic abuse. Like, for example, in the second stage, which is sort of as things progress, um, and you start to become devalued by the narcissist. I've introduced Medea, who isn't a
Hmm.
goddess. She was a human, but
Yeah.
she was a princess who eventually became a queen, who was betrayed by her husband, and she was pushed beyond sort of her limits. And this is
Right.
what the narcissist does to you in the second stage, the devaluing stage. You are just pushed beyond your limits, and you are just you don't recognize yourself, and you're betrayed. And this is where reactive abuse comes into it, because you're
Yeah.
reacting to their abuse by being abusive. You know, because
Yeah.
Medea ended up killing her own sons,
Wow.
sort of, just being pushed beyond all bounds and endurance. And
Yeah.
she ends up killing her own sons, and everybody says, "Oh, she's crazy." And then you think, no, she was abused and she was pushed
Yes.
beyond. So I'm not saying that narcissistic victims of narcissistic abuse kill people, but what I'm
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
is she represents how a narcissist will twist us into something that we're not. We
Yeah.
become somebody we don't recognize. And
Right.
then the third stage of the program is when you start to see what's going on. You were asking, like, what are some of the red flags and twigs.
Yeah.
Um, this is where I talk about Thea, who is the goddess of sight. And this is all these are some of the things that you start to twig. You start to Google, am I a narcissist? Right?
Right.
Like you start to see things in your partner's behavior that you can't unsee. And so this
Yeah.
is where the third stage is the start to see stage.
Right.
And then there's part of the third stage is either you leave or you're discarded. Because once the
Right.
narcissist knows, they're out of there, right?
Yeah.
So part of
Mhm.
part of the third stage is also the ending of the relationship. So the fourth stage that I talk about is the aftermath.
Right.
And this is just the messiest time of the entire process.
Yeah.
And because you're angry and you're confused and you're betrayed, and you still want them back, but you don't want them back. Like, it's just
Right.
a mess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the woman that I have represent this stage is Cassandra, who again wasn't a goddess, but a mortal woman. But she was cursed with the ability to see the future. Yet the
Mhm.
curse is that nobody believed a word she said. So she could see everything coming. She could see the whole picture of the world. She could see the future. And she would tell people. And the curse was from the gods that nobody would listen to her and nobody would believe her. And this is a big part of the aftermath is you start to tell people what you have been through and what has happened and how they treated you and what they did. And they don't believe you. They just
Yeah.
don't believe you. And the more you get clarity on how badly you were abused, the more urgent it becomes to speak.
Yeah.
And the more it hurts when people don't believe you. So
Right.
The Cassandra sort of part of stage 4,
Yes.
is where we talk about that aspect of the aftermath. And then the fifth part, of course, is just a new beginning. And
Hmm.
this is Eos or Aurora, and she's the goddess of the dawn. And this is just new beginnings, new possibilities, healing, looking to the future for the first time,
Hmm.
really rebuilding your life, really believing in you can start again, you're strong
Yeah.
enough to start again, you're worthy of starting again. And so those are the 5 stages. And I've
Yeah.
just given you sort of one example of the
Yeah.
goddess or the mythical woman. But within each stage, there's at least 7 goddesses or women who
Right.
represent different parts of each stage. So every each of the 5 stages is broken into almost modules, which
Mm.
are focused on the behavior and the patterns and the red flags and calling the abuse what it is. And
Yeah.
um, so it really is a course. It's a 90-day course, beginning to end, about what happened to you, you know,
Yeah.
and teaching you um, to see it for what it was, and
Mm.
also sort of educating you so you don't get into it again.
Yeah.
Because I think that what happens to a lot of women who leave narcissistic relationships, if they get discarded, they jump in right into a new relationship because, their ex is in a brand new relationship, right?
Yes.
Because, they probably were in that relationship while they were with you, but,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
you're thinking, well, God, clearly he's not the problem here because he's already got somebody amazing and he's treating her so well and they look so happy. And you're lonely and you're depressed and you're devastated. So you jump into a new relationship. But
Right.
the type of guy who might enjoy that type of thing might not be the best person for you. Like people
Yes.
who want a really damaged person generally aren't great people to be partners with. So you
Yes.
can go from one really abusive narcissistic relationship into another unhealthy relationship because you're not healthy.
Yes.
So I think it's possible to, yeah, you don't necessarily move from narcissist to narcissist, although I've heard of that happening. Some of the women I've
Yeah.
spoken to are like, why do I keep meeting these guys? And I'm like, well, if you take my course, I can tell you, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but when you're that broken by somebody who said they loved you, that you thought you loved, you are very vulnerable to another unhealthy dynamic. So the
Exactly.
purpose of yeah, so the purpose of this course is to show women the red flags.
Hmm.
So women who are in relationships and they feel like something is off,
Yeah.
there's a whole section about in the beginning. These are some things to look for. But it's for women who think they might be in a narcissistic relationship and they just
Yeah.
really don't know. So if I
Hmm.
break it down beginning to end and I talk about the different behaviors and patterns organized by goddesses, they can say, you know what, that is actually my relationship. This is what I'm in right now. And it also shows them the ways to get out of it. And
Right.
then it's also for women like me who are out of these narcissistic relationships, but
Yeah.
just need to get some perspective on what on earth happened. And
Yes.
this is the thing about narcissistic romantic relationships is they all follow the same patterns. It's like these guys are given a step-by-step playbook. And
Right.
when I talk to women who say, this happened. And I go, yeah, that happened to me too. And they're like, I thought I was the only one. And it's like, no, these guys are actually pathological. They are legitimately ill and they all behave the same way.
Right.
So the purpose of my course is to just break down into a really organized, manageable way all of these behaviors and all of these patterns and all of this drama and all of these pathologies, and I've broken them down in a really organized way that is easy to understand and relate to. And it shows you beginning to end the
Yeah.
cycle of the abuse. And I'm really proud of it because I think it is something that the way I've organized it by the goddesses, I think is just really, it's unique. I don't think it's been done like this before. And I think it's really helpful because it is showing women by using other women to represent things. And it's just something that I'm hoping that will be picked up by organizations and women's groups who want to talk to women and say, okay, you're out of the relationship, but you're still reeling. Here's something we can do over 90 days. And you can
Yes.
learn beginning to end sort of what happened to you. And you can go forward in the world a lot more informed and a lot smarter and knowing what to look for. So this does not happen to you again in the future.
I love the way you've set this up. This is
Oh,
amazing.
thank you. Thank
Really.
you.
Where can people find this? Where can they sign up for this course?
The right now I'm doing on okay, now I'm gonna say April. Hang on one second. I've forgotten the date. Can you believe
No.
that? April 5th. On April 5th, which is Saturday, I'm doing sort of my first session. And I
Hmm.
already have 4 women signed up for it. And if
Excellent.
anybody would like to, but when is this podcast coming out? Is it coming out before the 4th of
Oh
April?
yeah, 2 days we'll
Okay.
have it out live.
Okay, great. So then if anybody wants to join the session, what they should do is go to my Instagram page, which I'm sure you'll link to, right?
Hmm.
And they can find it in my Instagram, and there are ways to contact me through there. And then the best thing for us to do is for us to get on a one-on-one call for half an hour, just so I can sort of get some sense of why do you think you need this course? What are you looking for it? I mean, are you in the relationship? Are you out of? Are you dating somebody who's throwing up some weird red flags? Like, kind of, where are you?
Right. Hmm.
And then I can send them a link and they can sign up for the course. And it would be 90 minutes on that Saturday, and it would just be the introduction. And it would be sort of be one of the goddesses, sort of the
Right.
first module of the first stage of the abuse cycle, and then all of the behaviors that come through with that. So if people are interested in joining, it will be live, and there will be a PDF of information and sort of a workbook. And there will be open chat. So there'll be some question and answer. And eventually, what I want to do is record the sessions, and
Mhm.
then people can buy the course pre recorded. But there will always be, over the 90 days, 9 one-on-one calls with me, with each person who's joined the course.
Mhm.
So that's part of the course. It's not just getting on Zoom and being given information in a PDF. It's also one-on-one calls with me about extra support, or if there's something that because every case follows a textbook, but
Yeah.
every case is also unique. So it's
Yes.
it's additional support over the 90 days as well. So it's yeah, it's a full course with virtual you know what am I trying to say? Like virtual classes or sessions, which will
Yes.
eventually be recorded, where you can just go through them at your own pace, but there will always be the live element as well. There will also be sort of extra master classes, and I will bring in women that I call allies
Hmm.
who can maybe give advice on things that I'm not qualified to speak about. So things like um, I was talking about how when your body is under that much stress for that
Yeah.
much time, you're actually brain damaged. Well, there
Yeah.
are other physical side effects to that. So I have a woman who's actually a doctor who's specialized in what stress does to the brain and the body. And I would have her come in for a 30-minute session, like a Zoom session, you know?
Yeah.
And then
Hmm.
I have another woman who she's specialized in what stress does to the autoimmune system and how women who have been abused have crazy autoimmune disorders that go away, you know, after they leave the abusive situation. So,
Yeah.
and then I have another woman who's specialized in, she's a lawyer who helps women, you know, how to navigate the legal system when you're dealing with a
Wow.
narcissist, because the narcissist will use that to retell the story and smear the wife or the mother of his children.
Yes.
So I also have allies who come in as part of the 90-day course, and they do sessions on things that I'm not qualified to speak about. So it
Right.
really is an all encompassing, very information packed 90-day program.
Mhm.
But I think the way I've organized it is very, very logical and rational and clear and manageable as well. At least I hope I have.
Hmm. Well, it sounds like you have. Now, you said that people can get on a one-on-one call with you to discuss about their situation and to see if they're a candidate for the course and see if you could help them in any way. Where can they contact you so they could have that one-on-one consultation or they can maybe find out more about your services?
The best thing to do is go to my Instagram page, and everything is there. There are always I'm posting constantly, or I'm putting up reels constantly, and there's always the opportunity to contact me there or respond to one of the reels that I've put up or one of the posts, and then from there I will contact you and, you know, sort of figure out where are you, what do you need, what's happening in your life, like how can I help you.
Yeah.
And then we move to, okay, here's a link to my calendar, pick a time, I will call you, right? And then and the call isn't so much, you know, the call is more sort of, where are you? Like, how are you? What's
Yeah.
happening in your life, random
Right.
stranger, you know? Um, because I do believe that anybody who is in an abusive relationship with a narcissist or is kind of at the beginning of one and thinks they might be, and who is devastated by the end of the relationship,
Yeah.
um, the course addresses every one of those things. And even if you're at the beginning and you think, I'm not sure, you can still benefit from the whole thing because
Right.
you know what to look for in future partners. Maybe you can avoid this idiot, but there's
Yeah.
another idiot right behind him. So
Right.
it's also about informing people, informing women what to look for, like the red flags at the beginning, which are so hard to see with covert narcissists, because the whole
Yeah.
point is they're lying to you. But like I said, there are things you can do even in the beginning, little tests to see, is this person a narcissist?
Yeah.
And that's all part of the course as well. Little things you can do at the very beginning of the relationship to see, who is this person that I'm really dealing with. Like,
Yes.
you can provoke them to the point where the mask will slip and you'll see the real them behind the persona. And there are ways, there are little tips and tricks. So very helpful, even just in the first stage, sort of for anybody who's out there in the dating world at all. I mean, I use them now, you know, when I'm
Yeah.
out sort of dating. And I have avoided a couple of guys. I'm not saying they were narcissists, but they failed the test.
Yes.
Quite badly. So I would suspect that they were sort of toxic people or immature, emotionally stunted people, like just people that it's not worth it getting into with them, because
Exactly.
they might not be a narcissistic abusive piece of crap, but he's not emotionally mature. You know,
Right.
he can't manage his emotions, or he can't handle a woman being legitimately strong or having her own mind. So I'm out of there, right? So yeah, so I think the program It Happens to the Best of Us is really one of these things that I've worked so hard to make it accessible, informative, but it's a lot of information that I've organized, I think, in a really good way. And I really want it to be something that helps and guides and instructs and educates, but also soothes women like me who are out of the relationship. They can
Yes.
take the course, they can go through steps 1 to 5, and they can reach the conclusion that I reached, which was I was not crazy. I was
Right.
not wrong, you know.
Right.
And that's also important to me, that women can walk away from the relationship, take the course, and say, yeah, okay, it wasn't me. It just wasn't
Right.
me,
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
valuable, which is crazy valuable. You have no idea how,
Amazing.
when I first realized that I wasn't wrong, it was
Mhm.
such an amazing, empowering light bulb moment for me. And what I really want the course to do for women who have left the abusive relationship, I really want it to show them, like, just confirm to them, just
Yes.
it just so they can say to themselves, God, it really wasn't me. I really wasn't crazy. I really
Yes.
wasn't wrong. And
Right.
I think that's such an amazing thing to be able to do for someone. That's what I really want to help women. I want to help them get to that point. I really
And
do.
well, and you will because you have the knowledge, you have the experience. That course is phenomenal.
Thank
And
you.
can you tell people some of the other services that you provide as well?
Well, besides my books, my 32 healthy romance books, because I have gone back to writing, um, I have other courses. This is the big one. This is my big kind of 90-day thing. But I do have other courses which are more like master classes, which I'm setting up right now. And I also would like to do kind of like live workshops with people. You know, I would like to start a podcast eventually. I'm hoping you'll be one of my guests when I have my podcast. And
Mhm.
I would also, my really big dream actually is to start a retreat, like a 2 or 3 day retreat,
Yes.
um, basically going through the 5 steps, but in a lot more detail and with live experts there and the chance to do one-on-one stuff. And so it's something that I'm just at the beginning of, because I'm just doing my first session next month. Like,
Right.
I'm just starting it, but I have so many parts of it to pay. If you don't want to do the 90-day program, or you can't afford the 90-day program, well,
Yeah.
there are other things you can do as well that don't cost nearly as much, but are a lot more focused. I was thinking about doing master classes with a really narrow focus, like a single topic, something like how a narcissist uses the car as a method of abuse and control, which is it's one of those huge topics,
Yes.
um, all in itself. It's part of my 90-day course, that aspect of the control and the power and the abuse and the fear. But I would also do master classes about just individual topics like that, where we could talk for an hour about something really narrow and specific.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, so that's kind of how it's looking right now, Stacey. But the big thing that I'm really starting with is the 90-day program. It's the big one because it's the most all encompassing. It's the overview of everything, A to Z, beginning to end.
And where can people find your books?
On Amazon. The best place to find my books is on my website, which is marysoljames.com. If you go to my book series there's a drop down menu. All 6 of my series are there. And then the book, if you click on the book cover, it will take you to it on Amazon. And I've got it set up for Amazon US, UK, and I think Canada.
Okay.
My print books are coming, and I'm in the middle of switching all my books over to audio as well. So I'll have all my
Wonderful.
books in print and audio, hopefully by the summer. But it's a huge.
Wonderful.
I'm kind of doing a lot right now.
Yeah.
I'm writing my 33rd book right now. My 32nd book is on pre-order right now on Amazon. So I feel like I kind of have a lot going on.
I
I
love
feel
it.
like I,
I love
I've
it.
got,
Good
I've
for
got a lot, I've got
you.
a lot of balls up in the air. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but like my entire, like you said in the beginning, in your introduction to me, all of my focus is about healthy romance and healthy love. Kind of everything that I'm doing right now is that's my big focus. And I
Right.
write it, I talk about it, I go on podcasts about it. I created programs and other classes about it. Like I'm showing women what it is. I'm showing women what it isn't. So I'm really becoming really a big advocate for healthy romance.
I love it. I love it. Well, this
Thank
has been
you.
amazing. I am so proud of you. I am so proud of you and
Thank
what you're doing.
you.
You know, you've taken a situation in your life that was very difficult to deal with, and you learn from it, you gain strength and resilience, and you move forward in life, which is very hard to do once you've been hurt
Yeah.
like that. You know, so I give you kudos. You know,
Thank
you
you.
actually overcame what, you know, a very hard situation, and now you're helping others. So I think that's amazing, and I really, you know, think you're an amazing woman and a very
Thank you.
powerful woman, very good way.
Well, it's one of the things that, like I said, I was such a strong, independent woman. And then this guy came along, and within 2 years, he had dismantled everything about me. And it's just amazing to look back on it, but that's what happened. And then I got the strength to walk away from him, but I was not a powerful woman at that time. I've had to reclaim all of this. And the purpose of the course is to help women reclaim their power, but also their peace. Because um, the peace in my life now, without the constant drama and the silent treatment and the raging and the this and the that, and never knowing which personality was going to come home and what I was going to get. And um,
Yeah.
my life is just so peaceful. So I'm a woman who has reclaimed her power, but I also have a lot of personal peace. And that's something else I really want for women who have been through this same sort of thing that I have. I want them to be able to wake up and feel safe in their
Yeah.
skin, in their home, and in their lives. So that's also really important to me as well.
I love it. I love it. Well, this has been
Thank you.
amazing, Marysol. I thank you so much for being on the show today. As always, you are just an amazing woman, and I just love when you come on because you give so much motivation, inspiration, and
Thank
hope to
you.
individuals. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Stacey. You know what? I love talking to you because I think you're pretty incredible, actually, as a woman and as a writer and as a podcast host and somebody who goes on the news and talks about epilepsy and just things we can do to our bodies to make ourselves healthier mentally and physically. I mean, I think you're great. So we're kind of a mutual fan club, you and I think.
Oh, thank you so much. You're so sweet. I'm definitely one of your top fans for sure. 100%.
Thank you, Stacey.
You're so welcome. You have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye.